You ever wake up knowing your world's about to change? Like you just feel it? That was me. But before we dive in, please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end, and tell me in the comments which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. Now, listen closely. It was 5:04 a.m. when my phone rang. You never want to hear your phone ring at that hour, never. I reached for it, heart pounding, already knowing something was wrong. The name glowing on the screen? Ethan. My son. He was the boy I raised with love, the child I once held through fevers, heartbreaks, scraped knees. He used to call me his hero. Now, his voice sounded like I was just another item on his to-do list. Dad, he said flatly, Mom had a massive stroke. She's not going to make it. She's in the ICU. The doctors say it's just a matter of time. Silence. Then, colder than the wind slicing through the mountains outside, he added, We've got it all under control. Her funeral's set for Saturday. She left everything to me. You get nothing. I sat frozen. My mouth went dry. My wife of 47 years, gone? Just like that? But then, I smiled. Not out of madness. Not from grief. It was a soft, quiet smile. The kind of smile you wear when you know something nobody else does. Because standing right next to me holding a mug of tea very much alive, was my wife, Maria. And guess what? She was smiling too. We had heard every word. Ethan's cold betrayal. His rush to bury me in the same grave he thought he'd buried his mother in. Maria placed her mug down and said, I told you. He didn't wait. Not even a second. She was right. This wasn't a story about death. This was about truth. About revenge so slow, so silent, it didn't look like revenge at all. This is a story about a mother who faked her death to test the soul of her only child. A father who could have burned everything to the ground, but chose something far more dangerous, patience. And a son whose greed made him blind to the trap already closing around him. But if you click away now, you'll miss the part where a dead woman walks into her own inheritance meeting. You'll miss the moment a man's whole world collapses under the weight of his own lies. And you'll miss a final twist that had me staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. just whispering, wow. Let me take you back. My name is John Carter. I'm 69. Retired now, but I built a steel supply company from nothing, just grit and bruised hands. I've loved Maria since I was 21. We built a life together. One son, Ethan. Our pride. Our problem. That morning when he called, I was already awake. Coffee cold in my hand. Staring out at the snow creeping down the hills behind our cabin. I answered on the second ring. Dad, he said again, emotionless. Mom's not going to make it. Stroke. Coma. No chance of recovery. I didn't say a word. Just listened. His tone wasn't sad. It was practiced. Like he'd rehearsed it in a mirror. I'm coming to the hospital, I said firmly. Before he could reply, another voice came on. It was Alana. His wife. Oh, her voice was smooth like a lawyer's letter, dressed in sympathy but soaked in calculation. We've got it covered, Henry, she said. We're managing everything. It's really best you don't come. Your presence would complicate things. She's my wife, I whispered. And Ethan's mother, Alana said quickly. We have power of attorney. We'll update you if needed. Then, click. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand. The light from the fireplace flickering across the photo of Maria and me on our 30th anniversary. She looked at me and said, He really said I left everything to him? I nodded. Maria didn't flinch. She leaned closer and said, It's worse than I thought. Let me ask you something. What would you do if your own child tried to write you out of your life before your body was even cold? Would you lash out? Would you cry? Or would you wait? Leave a comment below. I want to know. Later that day, I got a call that shook me more than Ethan's betrayal. It was my granddaughter, Emily. She's 12. Wise beyond her years. She whispered into the phone, Grandpa, something's wrong. Mom and Dad are acting weird. They keep talking about lawyers and money. But nobody's crying. Nobody's sad. Then her voice cracked. And I miss Grandma. I just wanted to hear your voice. Then silence. The call had been cut off. They were already watching her. I sat there, fire crackling, heart pounding. And beneath all the pain, something else stirred. Resolve. Because Maria had once told me, truth shows up in crisis. It doesn't knock, it kicks the door in. And Ethan had just shown me exactly who he was. He thought this was over. He had no idea it had only just begun. In part 2, I'll tell you what happened when I walked into that hospital, and they tried to stop me. But I wasn't just a man trying to say goodbye, I was a husband on a mission. And what I found there, Changed everything. Don't miss it. The next morning, the snow outside had thickened, but my focus was razor sharp. I got in my truck before sunrise and headed straight to the hospital. Alana had said I was barred from seeing my wife. But 47 years of marriage doesn't get undone by a phone call. They didn't know me. They didn't know her. At the ICU entrance, a young security guard stepped forward, polite but visibly nervous. "Sir, I need to check if you're on the approved list." "My wife's name is Maria Alden," I said, not flinching. "Room 403. I'm her husband. Let me through." He tapped away on his tablet, then frowned. "I'm sorry, Mr. Alden. You're not listed." The words hit harder than a punch. Not even my name on the list. I blinked, trying to process. "I'm her husband," I repeated, voice shaking, not with sadness but disbelief. "Yes, sir, but the medical proxy on file restricts visitation. You'd need approval from her son, Ethan Alden, the very person who was counting the seconds until Maria was gone." I stepped back, fists clenched, heart hammering. My own son had legally barred me from seeing my wife. I didn't feel grief yet. No, it was something colder, sharper. Clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a takeover. I demanded to speak with the hospital administrator. It took over an hour before a woman in a gray suit walked me into a small office and gently confirmed everything I feared. 6 months ago, after Maria's minor heart scare, Ethan had convinced her to sign a healthcare power of attorney. She trusted him. He said it was just in case. But in case had become the key to locking me out of her life. I walked out of that office with my legs heavy and my soul heavier. It was happening. Everything Maria had warned me about. And I had missed it. As I reached the parking garage, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Henry." I turned. It was Ruth Myers, Maria's college roommate. She looked exhausted, but her eyes burned with the same fierce loyalty I remembered from decades ago. "They didn't let you in, did they?" I just shook my head. She pressed something into my hand. A sealed envelope, yellowed slightly, with my name written in Maria's handwriting. "She gave me this 3 months ago. Told me to keep it safe and give it to you only if things went sideways." I felt my knees weaken. "What's inside?" I asked. "She didn't say," Ruth replied softly. "Only that if it ever felt like the walls were closing in, you'd know when to read it." I didn't open it. Not yet. Not in a cold parking garage. I drove home in silence, the envelope resting on the passenger seat like it was alive, like she was sitting right next to me, waiting. At home, I went straight to my study, shut the door, and stared at that envelope for what felt like hours. Finally, I opened it. The letter inside was written in Maria's elegant, no-nonsense script. And the first line shattered me. "If you're reading this, Ethan has made his choice." She had seen it coming. Somehow, months ago. She had noticed the questions. The casual interest in the family trust. The whispered conversations with Alana that stopped when she entered the room. At first, she thought she was imagining things. But Maria was never one to ignore patterns. She wrote about Ethan's shift. From son to strategist. From heir to hunter. She wrote, "I don't want to trap our son. I want to know him. I want to know what happens when no one is watching." So she set a plan in motion. A test. She worked with David Klein, a financial advisor we'd trusted for years, to restructure the trust. To protect the assets. To give Ethan exactly what he wanted. A window of opportunity. So he could prove who he had become. Or who he hadn't. And if you're still with me right now, ask yourself, would you be brave enough to set a trap like that for your own child? Have you ever trusted someone with your life, only to find out they were planning for your death? Would you have done what Maria did? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Back to the letter. Maria's words weren't just calculated. They were tender. She wrote, "If Ethan fails the test, I need you to promise me something. Don't become like him. Don't let revenge steal the best parts of you. We've seen what greed does. Let him face what he's earned, but don't let him take you down with him." I clutched the paper so hard it nearly tore. The strength it took to write this. The trust she still had, in both of us. Even now. Even when her own son was circling like a vulture. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow felt longer. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Emily again. "Grandpa," she whispered, voice shaking. "I had a dream. Grandma was in my room. She told me not to be scared. That she's still here." My breath caught. "Sweetheart." "I know it was a dream," she whispered. But it felt real. I could smell her perfume. Lavender. Maria's favorite. I told myself it was just grief, just a child's aching heart. But deep down I wasn't so sure. Especially because I had noticed it too. In the hospital. When I held Maria's hand. It had felt warm. Too warm. And now, the pieces were falling into place. Maria had orchestrated more than just a financial test. She had created a mirror. And now, it was Ethan's turn to look into it. In part 3 I finally returned to the hospital, but this time Maria is no longer just a coma patient. And what I hear outside her room. A conversation that chills me to the bone. And what I do next. That's when the real trap springs. Don't go anywhere. You ever feel like you're standing right on the edge of something big? Like the moment before lightning strikes? That was me, back at the hospital for the second time. But this time I wasn't coming as a grieving husband. I was coming as something Ethan never expected. A man who knew the truth. Before we go further, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What would you do if someone tried to erase your existence with a signature? Back to that morning. It was raining hard. Cold, sharp drops slicing through my jacket as I stepped through the front doors of St. Margaret's Medical Center. But I didn't feel the cold. I was on fire inside. I wasn't on the visitation list. I knew that. So I didn't go through the front desk. Instead, I went through the side entrance. Maria had taught me how to disappear in plain sight. And old men? We're invisible in hospitals. Nobody questioned the man in a brown coat holding a takeout coffee tray. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. I knew her room number, 403. And as I rounded the corner, I stopped. The door was cracked open. Voices inside. I inched closer, heart pounding. It was Ethan and Alana. They were whispering but not soft enough. Ethan, the will's filed. You can't touch a cent. The doctors say she could last days in this state, maybe weeks, but she's not coming back. Alana, and the trust. Ethan, locked. I moved it. He'll never see it coming. Alana, what if she wakes up? Silence. Then Ethan said something I'll never forget. If she wakes up, she won't stay awake long. There it was. Not grief. Not fear. A threat. My blood turned to ice. I stepped back. I didn't go in. Not yet. Because now I knew something Ethan didn't. Maria was not in a coma. Not really. She had faked it. Oh, because she knew Ethan. She knew the moment he smelled inheritance, he'd show his teeth. She had spent the last 6 months working with Dr. Nancy Kwan, her longtime friend and a neurologist. Maria had created the illusion of vulnerability. Monitored vitals. Carefully placed symptoms. Real enough to fool the system. But the moment Ethan said she won't stay awake long, I realized something terrifying. He was planning to accelerate the process. I rushed back to the elevator. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about saving her life. If your child said something like that, hinting at ending your life, how far would you go to stop them? Would you call the cops? Would you go face to face? Let me know in the comments below. This one still haunts me. Back to the story. I didn't go home. I went to David Klein, the financial advisor Maria trusted, the only other person who knew everything. I told him what I'd heard. He didn't even blink. I knew it would come to this, he said. Maria planned for it. Then he pulled out a locked folder. Inside were documents. Legal. Binding. Turns out, the trust wasn't in Ethan's control. Not really. Maria had quietly moved the bulk of our estate into a secondary trust. One that activated only if Ethan attempted fraud or preemptive legal action. And guess what? Him forging her signature on an early will? It triggered everything. David looked at me and said, "Henry, it's time." Time for what? Time for Maria to wake up. That night I returned to the hospital, but not through the front. Dr. Kwan met me in the staff wing and together we walked to room 403. The blinds were drawn. The machines beeped steady. Maria looked peaceful. But I knew the truth now. As Dr. Kwan shut the door behind us, she leaned over Maria and whispered. He said the words. He's ready. Maria's eyes fluttered. Then slowly, gloriously, opened. She looked straight at me and smiled. Did he say it? I nodded. She exhaled. Then whispered, let's begin. She wasn't just alive. She was ready. In part 4, Maria makes her first move, and it's a quiet one. A single phone call. A transfer. A letter. And suddenly Ethan's world begins to collapse from the inside. You'll hear the moment he realizes. She's not dead. Stay tuned. Some revenge comes loud. Some comes like a whisper. And Maria, she knew how to whisper in thunder. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me this in the comments. What's the coldest thing someone ever did to you, And how did you respond? Because what Maria did next, it was surgical. We waited 24 hours. Maria needed time to regain her strength, but her mind? Sharp as ever. By the next morning, she had written 3 letters by hand. One for the hospital board, one for our lawyer, and one for Ethan. But let's start with the hospital. Maria dictated a formal statement, signed in the presence of Dr. Kwan and a hospital notary, revoking Ethan's medical power of attorney. Effective immediately. She requested a private guard be posted outside her room. Discreet but firm. They agreed. No questions asked. Because here's the thing. When a woman wakes from a coma and starts issuing legal orders with crystal clarity, people listen. And Ethan? He had no idea. He still thought she was unconscious. Still thought the clock was ticking in his favor. He was already planning the memorial. But he was about to receive a letter that would feel more like a death sentence. Put yourself in his shoes. You think you've won. You've buried the truth. And then, a letter arrives. Handwritten. In your mother's handwriting. What's the first thing you do? Drop it in the comments. Now back to the story. Maria's letter to Ethan was simple. No threats. No anger. Just truth. You had a choice. All I ever wanted was to know the man you've become. And now I do. This isn't about money. It's about character. And yours broke long before the will was written. You will be hearing from the lawyers. I suggest you speak with a good one. We had it hand-delivered to Ethan's estate, via private courier, signed for at 3:12 p.m. And oh, how fast the wheels came off. Because 20 minutes later, David Klein called me laughing. You're not going to believe this, he said. Ethan's already trying to freeze the trust accounts. But guess what? What? They're gone. Well, every cent months ago. Maria had transferred everything into a trust in Emily's name, overseen by a board of 3 longtime family friends, including Ruth and David. Locked until Emily turned 25. It was genius. Ethan couldn't touch a dime. And as for Alana? She'd co-signed forged paperwork, which meant she was now legally implicated. That evening, I sat with Maria, both of us silent, listening to the fireplace crackle at home. We hadn't said much since the letters went out. Then quietly she turned to me and said, "He's going to come here." And she was right. Because at 7:44 p.m., headlights appeared in the driveway. A sleek black car. Too fast. Too loud. Ethan. He slammed the door, stormed up the porch, fists clenched. I stepped outside before he could knock. He stopped short when he saw me. "Where is she?" he barked. "What kind of sick joke is this?" I just stared at him. "You looked me in the eye," I said. "You told me she was gone." He didn't flinch. Just sneered. "She might as well be." And that's when I realized. He hadn't come to apologize. He had come to fight. But what he didn't know was this. The police were already on their way. Maria had filed a report. Medical fraud. Forgery. Attempted undue influence over an estate. It wasn't just betrayal now. It was criminal. The last thing I said before they pulled into the driveway, red and blue lights flashing behind him, was this. "You buried your own future, Ethan. And now, it's time to lie in it." He turned to run, but it was too late. Handcuffs clicked. Silence followed. Maria watched it all from the upstairs window. Not triumphant. Not cold. Just still. And then she said something I didn't expect. "I wish I had been wrong about him." In the final part, Ethan faces consequences, but that's not the real ending. Because Maria has one last twist. A secret she never told anyone. Not even me. And it changes everything. Don't miss the final chapter. You ever think the story's over, only to realize you were never told the whole truth? That was me. If you've made it this far, like this video, subscribe, and please drop a comment telling me how you would have ended this story. Because trust me, I never saw this ending coming. Let's begin. It had been 3 weeks since Ethan's arrest. The charges were piling up. Forgery, financial fraud, elder abuse, and obstruction. The case was airtight. Maria's medical team, the financial records, the witness statements, every brick Ethan tried to stack became a wall against him. Alana had flipped almost immediately. She cooperated with investigators and in exchange for immunity handed over emails, phone calls, even bank transfers. She told the truth. Ethan never had a chance. And you might think, that's the end. The bad son falls. The good parents heal. Justice is served. Roll credits, right? No. Because one morning, after all the noise died down, Maria called me into the garden. She was pruning her lavender, the scent stronger than ever. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "I need to tell you something, Henry." Something I never told anyone. She paused, hands still moving. Before I faked the coma, I changed my will. Again. I raised an eyebrow. You already secured everything for Emily. Yes, she said. But that wasn't the only thing I changed. She walked to the bench, sat down and pulled out an envelope. It was sealed in red wax. She handed it to me. Open this when I'm gone. Not before. I felt a chill. Gone? Maria, you just beat death and Ethan. She smiled sadly. I'm not dying. Not today. But life doesn't give second chances forever. I've made peace with that. I didn't press her. I didn't need to. Some part of me already knew Maria was preparing her ending on her terms. And so I waited. We spent 2 more years together. Quiet, simple, beautiful years. And then one morning in spring I woke up and she was gone. Peacefully. In her sleep. No drama. No pain. Just silence and lavender. After the funeral, small, private, just family and a few close friends, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. And a second envelope labeled to Ethan. I read hers first. Henry, if you're reading this, then my time has come. And that's okay. I didn't want to leave without telling you the full truth. Ethan is not just broken. He is broken by us. We raised him with expectations, pressure, and pride. We gave him everything, except one thing, room to fail without fear. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. I wrote him a letter. You'll find it enclosed. You don't have to send it. I leave that choice to you. I only ask one thing, forgive him if you can. And if you can't, forgive yourself for not being able to. Love always, Maria. I held that second envelope in my hands for days. Then one morning I walked into the prison. Minimum security now. Ethan had been sentenced to 8 years, but good behavior and a solid lawyer had brought it down to 3. He looked older. Tired. I didn't say a word. Just slid the envelope across the table. He hesitated. Then opened it. I don't know what Maria wrote. He didn't read it aloud. But I watched his hands start to shake. His lips tremble. And for the first time in years, he cried. Not angry tears. Not shame. Real grief. And maybe that was Maria's final gift, not just to him but to all of us. She didn't take revenge to destroy. She took revenge to reveal. And in doing so, she planted the only seed strong enough to break the curse. Truth. So here's where I'll leave you. If someone wrongs you, you have every right to walk away, to fight back, to protect what matters. But don't ever let their poison turn you into them. Choose the slow revenge, the silent strength. Choose peace with power. Because sometimes the most devastating revenge is healing. If this story moved you, let me know your favorite part. Would you have handled it the same way Maria did? Or would you have chosen a different path? Drop it in the comments, because your version might be someone else's guide. And thank you for listening.